Welcome to the Cult Classic Horror Show. Every week, you can have the conversations you've always wanted to have about the films you love.
Shut up!
We're gonna get you. We're gonna get you. Not another peep. Kinda
Get rid of your distractions and prepare yourself.
Then lock your door. 5, 6, gonna crucifix.
You got a big surprise coming to you. You're not going anywhere.
Welcome everybody to the Cult Classic Horror Show. Danny Bonin here.
Scotty Bonin here.
We are
The Blood Brothers.
And
Carmelo Chimera.
yes, sir. Still second ep in a row with no Rob.
Robless. We're Robless.
Rob
Robless
is
Joe from Hannibal Mo.
he has no internet. He did weather the storm, the hurricanes down in Florida.
He's
And
alive.
he has been left
I
with
mean,
no
that's
internet.
no internet. Pretty good excuse for not being here, man.
I did tell him he should join from his phone though.
Oh
'cause
yeah,
you
he
can-
could have done that.
You can do that with the link that we send out, and I don't know. Maybe he'll pop his head in. Doubtful, but you never know. You just never know.
It could be patchy service on his
Rob's
phone.
very-
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, but like most of Florida right now, he's stranded without, basic first world amenities, which isn't that different than Florida on a normal day.
Yeah, exactly.
It's worse now.
His entire backyard got torn apart. Trees falling down. His swimming pool cage blew off.
Yeah, he's always
he got hit pretty hard.
him and his mom are always like, you should move down here. Like, well, we have no snow. We have no blah blah blah. We have, like talking about how they don't deal with anything like we do in Colorado. And I'm like, really? Ever since I've known you, it's just hurricane, no power all the time.
Back
None
to
of
back
this.
hurricanes in like 2 weeks, man.
And on a good day, his internet's always been by far the worst of any of ours.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
I
Andy's
think
the best. Yeah.
in the history of my life, I've lived my whole life in Colorado, and in the history of my time living here, I think the snow has knocked the power out like 2 times ever, and for about 30 minutes.
Yeah, we haven't had too much power outages for sure. Flood here and there, but nothing serious.
But here we are talking about 28 days later.
I was going to say Rob's going to come back 28 days later when he gets his internet back. Here we are.
He's going to wake up naked in hospital, except the main difference is you won't even see a scrap of penis through his bush.
No, it'll just be all bush, nothing but just a muff.
After 28 days of not shaving it, it would consume his entire body like Chewbacca.
Yeah, it'd just cover his whole entire body because Rob grows hair like a freaking madman.
Well, before we jump into this, there's a phenomenon surrounding this movie that I did not know about that we have all come to figure out. And then Carmel and I guessed it on a podcast yesterday, and they brought this up too. I think before you joined, Carmelo, that this movie is unfindable anywhere, basically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. It took me 20 minutes, remember?
It is it is a thing in the horror world, I suppose, that if you have a physical copy of 28 Days Later, or you see one out there, you should snatch it up because they don't make them. It's never streaming anywhere. And people will pay top dollar for them.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. I mean, there's one on eBay right now for like $300.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy crap!
Yeah, and there's one like the cheapest one was like 50 or 45 or something, but still, yeah.
What's crazy is that I never knew that at all.
That's on Amazon though.
And we were deciding on what to cover this week last minute. We just hadn't. We've been traveling and all this. Just didn't have a chance to really get super prepared. And so I just said, well, let me open up my movie collection and see what I have that has a bunch of special features that we can
DVD collection.
Yeah, my digital video disc collection, and see what all I have that we could cover that we haven't covered yet that I have like special features for. So we have some information. And yeah, I have 28 Days Later sitting there, and it was back from when you rented the movie at Blockbuster. And when you rented it, they actually gave you the movie in its like DVD case.
Right.
And if you didn't return it, they would just charge you for the movie. I don't know if you recalled that ever.
Yeah.
There was a time when they would give it to you, obviously, in a Blockbuster branded sleeve, like case, that just had Blockbuster on it. But then they shifted from that, and they just straight up gave you the DVD case with the movie. But I think they repackaged it like it's the DVD cover in one of their generic boxes,
Right.
And then they would just charge you if you didn't return it. And that's what happened with this movie to me so many years ago. I just kept it because I liked it when I rented it.
Yeah.
Right.
They charged me for it. So it is the widescreen DVD, which does look like absolute garbage on my TV.
It's not high definition.
It is not high def. It is not 4K. It looks like shit.
Just buy. Yeah, keep.
I was saying, but I own a copy, and it has all these special features on it. So that was awesome. I guess I
grabbed your copy, but we did find a link online that Danny sent that worked. So
I did find a link on Reddit to some random site that has the movie on it with ads. And it's not a legit. I don't think it's a legit movie site. But
I watched it and it worked. There was a couple ads like the first 10 minutes, and then it streamed all the way through perfectly fine.
All right.
It boggles my mind that it's not available anywhere to stream or even to. I mean, just you buy it. It's wild. I mean, it's a well-known movie.
Yeah,
and tons of reviews. It's very well known.
The director, 28 Weeks Later is available everywhere.
Yeah.
They're about to come out with 28 Years Later, and it's being all hyped up. So you would think.
I heard that like Disney owned 28 Days Later, and they had some kind of disagreement with whoever owned it before, or the makers or whatever, and they owned it, and some disagreement happened, and then Disney dropped it, and that's the reason why you can't stream it anywhere. It's because of that happened. So it's all because of Disney, whatever the agreement that didn't come to fruition.
Well, I just want to say that I love this movie. It's always been one of my I don't know favorites, but I've always loved this movie. That's why I kept it back in the day. And I love Cillian Murphy in it. It's the first thing I ever saw him in. It's just I like it. So I didn't mind revisiting it. Didn't mind watching it again with commentary. That's my first reaction.
Oh, I loved it too, man. I just got done watching it like a few minutes ago, and I didn't remember any of it hardly. Like I remembered like the military getting involved and like the very end there and stuff, but I just forgot. I forgot Brendan Gleeson was in it. I just forgot how it started. I don't know. So, but it all kind of came back to me. It is the first thing I saw Cillian Murphy in too. Yeah. And obviously after that, he did a lot of other bigger things and stuff, but he was awesome in it. Brendan Gleeson was great. The premise was great. And it's just one of those movies you feel isolated in and no one's around. And it's got a great feel, a great zombie movie for sure. And I remember it still holds up to this day.
Zombie-esque movie.
Zombie-esque, yeah.
They're quite zombies. I mean,
yeah, they're not zombie. They're more just infected humans.
Yeah. What do you think about this movie, Carmelo?
This movie's fantastic. It's stayed with me and haunted me ever since I first saw it.
Totally.
And then 28 Weeks Later was that much more haunting. And I think it was really the first time we saw fast zombies, right? Yeah. Maybe more famously done by Zack Snyder in Dawn of the Dead. And I only say that was maybe more famous because it was a bigger studio release and because it was they were more traditional zombies. And this was rabies or some version of rabies.
Totally.
But that's what kind of makes it work too. And because slow corpses for fast corpses doesn't make a ton of sense, but like people who are like freaking out with rabies, that's different. It also felt weirdly real to me. Like I think the idea that there could be some disease that drives people like crazy foaming at the mouth is not that hard. It's not that far fetched. It's just not. And then of course what happens with the soldiers and everything at the end is just like, that's exactly what would happen. So
yeah.
Love it. No, great movie.
It had a Crazies feel. The Crazies feel like the newer one. In the military, and they're a little bit more faster too. And they kind of get infected too, right? In the Crazies, yeah.
And
So that's what I would relate it to. Anything close, and yeah, Dawn of the Dead. Zack Snyder did it there too. But
Right.
but yeah, we should get into a little.
What's this movie about, Carmelo?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me spin you some yarn here. All right. So in 28 days later, a group of well-meaning but not so bright animal rights activists break into a lab to liberate some chimps. They are explicitly warned that these chimps contain a rage virus that drives everyone fucking crazy. And the chimps escape, the virus escapes, and by the time our hero Jim wakes up from a coma 28 days later, that's the name of the thing.
Yeah.
That was all it took for Western civilization to just crumble, or at least London. And so Jim kind of lost. Yeah, I mean, especially because you find out more in the sequel too. It's like it's just London, but not for long. Anyway,
Which I need to watch because I haven't seen it in forever. And
I can't remember the sequel. I can't remember it that well.
But please go ahead.
So, anyways, Jim wakes up. He's kind of like walking around, wondering what the hell's going on, and meets some survivors. He meets Selena, who's kind of a badass. He meets Frank and his daughter Hannah. Some other folks who don't last long enough for me to be worth describing to you. But anyways, they're like, look,
Just one guy, really.
Yeah, Mark. Poor Mark.
Yep.
Anyway, they're like, hey, there's this military outpost. Let's get there. That'll protect us. So they try to fight their way through the city to get there, and then actually, really, most of this movie ends up being less about the zombies and more about this military group who's like, we're kind of worried about repopulating the earth and all that, and we want your women.
Yeah.
And then Cillian Murphy doesn't take too kindly to that.
Nope.
And I'm not sure if I recall exactly why, if any explanation is given for his badassery.
No, really, there isn't. And that's
All
what
of
I
a sudden
remember
he turns into a
most about
badass.
the movie too. It's just suddenly he becomes this badass.
Right. It's like it's kind of cool because it's like the military is the real monsters, but then it's like he taps into his own inner rage and and in any case, he fucks everybody up.
His parents got killed. His girlfriend's being held hostage. He flips.
Yeah, he loses it, man, and there is no mercy. And and then at the end, there's a little bit of hope. It looks like society might be okay and might recover.
Yeah, very
Plane
true.
Flew over, got the sheets all sewn together.
Yeah.
Hello.
Did you find any numbers on?
I did actually. I just looked it up.
Okay.
This movie did very well. Released November 1st, 2002. So it is a classic, I would say, and 22 years ago.
Yeah.
Released in the United Kingdom, but it worldwide. Then after that, and the budget for it was $8 million, and the final box office number was $84.7 million off that $8 million. So pretty good reception.
I do remember when it came out. I rember the previews and everything, and I was sort of excited to watch it. Although
I do remember that too. Yeah, we were sophomores in high school.
But well, let's jump into 28 Days Later.
Yeah, let's do it.
Directed by Danny Boyle, of course, who at the time was famous and up and coming because of Train Spotting.
Yeah,
working with Ewan McGregor and
That's
such.
right.
Although he did do a movie called Shallow Grave before Train Spotting that Ewan McGregor was in, and Eccleston, the guy who played Christopher Eccleston, who played the general in this movie in 28 Days Later.
Right.
So they've worked together a lot, and he's a great actor as well. But then he went on to do The Beach. Well, he had done The Beach before 28 Days Later too, so had worked with DiCaprio before. He did Sunshine, he did Slumdog Millionaire, 127 Hours, Steve Jobs. So yeah, I mean, just a laundry list of some things. But he was born in 1956 in Radcliffe, Lancashire, England, north of Manchester. But during the commentary, he would refer to Manchester sort of as his hometown, and that's where they were at.
Nice.
Ended up being, he now describes himself as a spiritual atheist, but was brought up in a working class Catholic family. He was an altar boy for 8 years, and his mother had the priesthood in mind for him. But at the age of 14, he was persuaded by a priest not to transfer to seminary.
Really? Oh wow, that's funny.
Yeah. So he's quoted as saying whether he was about this said priest that talked him out of it. He said, whether he was saving me from the priesthood or the priesthood from me, I don't know. But quite soon after, I started doing drama, and there's a real connection, I think. All these directors like Scorsese, John Woo, M. Night Shyamalan, they were all meant to be priests, which I didn't know.
Wow.
There's something very theatrical about it. It's basically the same job, pouncing around, telling people what to think.
Same job as director, right? Hey, they got it in him. He got it in his blood.
Yeah. Well, he studied English and drama at the University College of North Wales, now Bangor University, where he directed several productions for the Student Drama Society. After graduating, he began his career at the Joint Stock Theatre Company before moving to the Royal Court Theatre in '82, where he directed some stuff. So a theater guy in London. Then in '87, started working in television as a producer for BBC Northern Ireland and produced some TV films and things like that. And yeah, so all that sort of morphed into film. He in 2011, though, he directed Frankenstein for the National Theatre. So that sort of went back to that.
Dipping back into theater action.
Yeah. And he was announced to be directing a dance adaptation of The Matrix titled Free Your Mind, set to debut in October 2023. So last year. I wonder if it ended up debuting or
That'd be fun to see.
Yeah.
Just like people dancing through lasers and going underneath.
I don't know. Just a dance show of The Matrix.
Very acrobatic, I would.
But that's enough about him. We can move on to the film. So, this movie starts out with all of this footage, so to speak, of the world falling apart during the opening credits. Which, well, I guess, this was before. This is what the chimps are watching. Right?
Yeah.
So this is before the outbreak happens.
Yeah.
They didn't want to use real footage of people getting killed, obviously, but they based this footage off of real footage from the conflict that was happening in Sierra Leone previously to this. So that's where they sort of got the inspiration. Then it goes on to we widen out and we see that there's a chimp watching it. We see that there are all these caged chimps, and that sequence was shot in Stuttgart. And there's only two, I guess, at this time, only two working quote unquote chimp teams in Hollywood. One was in LA and one was in Stuttgart.
Where's Stuttgart at?
You know what? I don't. Look it up real quick.
Here, I can look it up.
I don't even know how the heck you spell Stuttgart.
To save my life, I couldn't spell Stuttgart.
Stuttgart. Oh, Stuttgart, city in Germany.
Okay, that sounds right.
Stuttgart?
It sounds German for sure. Like, where the hell is Stuttgart?
Okay. Stuttgart. Anyways, so yes, that's where they went to film this chimp sequence. Was Stuttgart.
Go where the chimps are at.
Yeah,
That's
as Carmelo mentioned, this is not zombies per se, but it is a virus that they don't even say rabies in the film or even in the commentary. They just call it a rage virus and
a rage infection virus.
Yeah. Danny Boyle and I also, the commentary I listened to is Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, and then I've watched some other videos and stuff which interviews them. But Alex Garland's the writer, so they wanted a psychological virus, not so much a biological virus. So
that's in. What does that even mean?
Yeah, he was like something where it's affecting the mind and not so much the body, I guess, is how he explained it. So it really is just a rage that is being transferred and infected from person to person. It's just this unquenchable rage, I guess, that gets put in their head. Yeah.
This thing I like about the movie too, once you get hit by the blood, it's like seconds and you turn. And so you got to kill him right away. But okay, I can go with that.
After that, of course, Killian wakes up, hanging dong and everything.
Yep. Naked.
They did say, he was a little bit nervous about all that, but clothes said everything went fine. So
that's his real dong?
That's his real dong.
No way.
He's wrong. I don't want to miss that.
Real dong. So you may notice when he's walking around, there's no bodies. There's just no bodies. There's no dead bodies. And they said, Alex Garland says that, and same with Danny Boyle, who I think had the ultimate decision about it, was they understood that maybe that didn't make a whole lot of sense if this whole town had been ravished. Like there'd be at least a couple bodies out on the street.
Yeah.
Sure.
But they were going for atmosphere, quote, atmosphere and surrealism over plot requirements. And they wanted to just have this empty, surreal vibe and atmosphere going on while he's walking around, not knowing what's happening, and not introduce these dead bodies yet. So
I definitely believed it when I was watching it. I didn't say where are all the bodies? The only thing I questioned is how is he the only one left in there and how is he alive still? Waking up. But but who you're not supposed to.
We don't really know. I mean, I guess maybe he was at such a living at such a low frequency that they weren't the infected weren't interested in him or something.
Yeah, he was passed out, whatever, still in a whatever.
But they did obviously relatively lower budget film, $8 million, and they have these massive shots of an empty London, and they were able to close streets down in London for about 90 seconds at a time in the early morning and film these sequences with multiple cameras right away. Cool.
Because London's a freaking bustling city. That's hard to do, man.
They would go out, they would have policemen block off the streets. They'd have about 90 seconds, multiple cameras, then they would shoot it. So they must have had, they didn't mention this, but they would have had to have an art department crew rush in and spread trash everywhere and everything, to get those shots. And in fact, they even talked about in one shot, there's an overturned bus right outside, I think the Parliament building or something. And a lot of this, they said you could never get away with post 9/11 now. And 9/11 actually happened while they were shooting. So
really?
That's another interesting fact. I have it in the notes here. I don't mean to jump ahead, but actually they were filming the tower scene where you meet Brendan Gleeson when 9/11 happened, when it actually happened.
God, wow.
And another interesting thing is they did pretty much film this whole movie in sequence, in sequential order. Only a couple pickup shots later on that they had to go back and get. So
nice. That's nice.
But anyways, going back to you see an overturned bus, a double-decker bus on the street, and they really fought to be able to do that, and the art department had to promise the government they would have it in and out of there in 15 minutes.
Jeez.
They did. Sure enough, they overturned this bus, turned it back over, and got it the fuck out of there.
Jeez. Wow.
And he said that it reminded me of Carmelo, actually, because Danny Boyle was like, we promised the government, basically, who gave us permission, that we would only take this amount of time and we'd be out of there by 8 a.m., 7:30 to 8 a.m. And there was some hesitance because they're used to these film people just blowing off and going off schedule. And he said, but sure enough, they were out of there by 7:30 a.m. every morning. They had to do these shots,
Wow.
I'm just saying, Carmelo is known to be really on time as well. So,
on time. I mean, they had to be up 4 a.m. prepping, getting everything ready.
Sure. Oh, sure.
Sunrise comes up. Okay, shoot right now.
Well, those scenes are so important because it sets the tone for the movie. Is this post-apocalyptic thing? It's what's so chilling about it.
Yeah, and you need them for the trailer too. Honestly, that's what I remember about the trailer. It was all these empty London shots.
Yeah, you see that first shot of him walking out of the hospital of the Big Ben clock tower right there, and I was like, is that real? Is that how did they get all those people to clear out? And sure enough, it was.
They did do some things digitally though that worked, and you would never even know. Which
really
just small things like a couple shots. There was maybe one car in the corner driving by, and they were able to remove that digitally.
Oh, wow. Okay. So more or less removing things.
Yeah, just removing some things is what they were mainly doing
in the background.
Yeah.
That guy driving that car, damn it.
They also had, they used that community board sort of in the film to show us that people were basically using it to try and find lost loved ones and communicate with each other, because obviously all lines of communication had gone down. Actually, Danny Boyle modeled that after something that actually happened in Peking, China, or Beijing, or whenever. Then they had a disaster there, and people were using the community board to sort of write notes back and forth to each other. There was no communications, but there's that thing is plastered with pictures and notes. And he just talked about some art department lady that spent 3 months writing all those notes and creating them.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah.
So then we get to the church where we finally see all the bodies.
All the dead bodies piled up.
Yeah. All the bodies piled up there. And those were all volunteers that they didn't pay to be there for the day.
That lay dead. Wow.
Yeah, everyone laying in there dead. So
are we thinking that the contagious people that are infected bring the bodies and leave them in the church? Or
I don't know that they gave. They did give an explanation.
You can just use your own, whatever you want to come up with to use your own imagination to solve that.
I would maybe assume that they were gathering as a shelter in the church and then all died, but I don't know, maybe for some odd reason the infected were dragging bodies to this one central location. I'm not sure.
We come up with your own conclusion about that one.
But
then he said, he's quiet, Jim's all quiet, and he's like, hello. And then that's when they go fucking crazy. I'm like, don't say anything. Something
interesting just offhand about the church that they mentioned. This is one of there's these churches in London called the Hawksmoor churches. So they were built by a guy named Nicholas Hawksmoor, was back in the 1700s. He was a architect that designed and had built 6 different churches around London. It's rumored that there are satanic and pagan symbols embedded within the architecture of Hawksmoor's many London churches. And that they are built over child sacrifices, and their placement around the city draws together powerful forces into the shape of a pentagram.
What?
But I did look further into this, and it does say, quote, these apocryphal tales are, of course, the stuff of fiction whipped up for Peter Ackroyd's dark and masterful narration in Hawksmoor, a book that did much to help articulate the architectural qualities and enhance the reputation of the real Hawksmoor, and on, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know how true, they probably aren't true, and I don't know how far the rumors go, but very interesting.
I mean, can you see the actual stonework of it, of the actual the signs?
The rumors went far enough for the people doing this commentary to mention it. Oh, and that was one of the Hawksmoor churches.
Oh, well, rumor enough. Maybe it kind of spiced up the things on the set of the movie,
maybe,
and the mysterious things around it.
This priest that we meet that comes out of the door and is the first one we really see up close and moving awkwardly. He was actually a quote unquote movement expert that helped create the movements for all the dead, for all the quote unquote zombies. I guess they're not even dead, but for all the infected in the film. So he's sort of the one that came up with the way they move and taught the others how to do it.
It is frightening the way they move, for sure.
To throwing their arms back and jerky movements.
And then their eyes, their beat, bloodshot eyes, and completely concealed over. Man,
it's really brilliant the way. This is later in my notes, but it's worth mentioning now that they're so jerky and everything is so all at once and sporadic with them that. And it's not just how they're acting. Danny Boyle talks about how there's a setting in the camera they were using that had to do with frame rate. And I don't think it was the exact frame rate setting, but it had to do with it. And he wasn't even able to completely explain it. But he said that they would use a certain setting whenever it was on the infected, and it made it a little more unnatural and jerky. And then they would
cool.
Yeah, and then they would put it back to normal when it wasn't on them. And the only other time they used the setting was also when Jim goes badass at the end.
Oh,
It was on him too.
Oh, now we know. Now we know why he looks so badass.
And that's interesting because that's what we were like saying at the beginning is like he's almost got like a natural rage, right? Not like the diseased rage, but he's got the same like thing going on. And then
It's true.
Yeah. Rage too. If my wife was in there and being almost raped.
Well, not wife, but you know.
Yeah, but girlfriend.
His girlfriend of 2 days.
Yeah, girlfriend. Of 2 days.
He went way back.
And but everyone else is gone, so he's the only one that cares about him, or he cares.
If everyone
about
in the world's gone, and you met a hot chick and she's willing, you're gonna fight hard for that pussy.
Yes, yes. And,
I hate that word, so I should have said like snatch or something.
I mean, most guys would stab someone for a girl on like a normal day. So
that's
like,
true.
You know,
Yeah,
in these situations, I can only imagine.
I mean, these guys are desperate, man. I mean, they haven't had any action in, over 28 days, and it's been a long time.
God forbid.
That's all it took was a month.
Oh, jeez.
Well, then,
that's probably the most believable part of the movie.
I know. They all just go to hell. It's been 28 days.
I can't resist. Come on.
Well, then, basically, we have this. He meets Celine, and Mark, it was, right, who doesn't last too long. But he meets them in the midst of this gas station explosion. And this is what cost the most money out of the whole shoot, was blowing up this gas station.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that was a day everyone wanted to be there. It cost £250,000 to do that sequence.
Jeez.
And
what that equates to. And
Danny Boyle just talks about how they wanted to compete with, I mean, he used the words like American cinema, because this is a whole British operation making this film. And they wanted to be legit. And he talked about it again at the end when it's raining. It's raining for the whole climax. Yeah. And rain can be expensive to do, he was saying. And he was very specific that he wanted this very thick, visceral rain coming down. And because he wanted it to be up there with these American movies that the rain looks good in.
Yeah, sure. Just like Shawshank Redemption, you know?
Yeah. Fair enough.
So this blows up. Jim gets drugged down the, into the little shop where they take a rest. That's underground subway train station or whatever.
Where you see like the lottery tickets and stuff. Yeah,
the first time we see Mark, he has this gas mask on and he tells a joke through the gas mask about a giraffe or something. I don't even remember the fucking joke.
Like lion, the giraffe, and he's lying. Yeah, lying down. But yeah,
the original joke was Luke said to Darth Vader, "I know what you got for Christmas." And he says, "How?" And he says, "I felt your presence."
I felt.
I don't. It's not that funny either. Your presence. I don't. With the Force, I don't know.
the giraffe and lion though, because I saw a giraffe lion there. It's like that's not a lion, that's a giraffe. Yeah.
Lion.
Yeah.
It was bad. Yeah,
it wasn't that funny.
But so they're there. They decide that they will go search for Jim's parents to make him satisfied, that they're dead now, or not dead. But so I got to watch some deleted scenes too. There was a cut scene here. First of all, they did get permission to walk on the raised monorail system or train system, as you saw in the film. They sort of walk along that. That was cool. But they did have a cut scene where they inspect a abandoned train car that was obviously used as a makeshift hospital. And that would have been sort of some cool backstory to like just what they had to go through in the last 28 days,
Right.
So, but they said on that particular day, it was pouring rain, and it's not supposed to be raining at all in London at the time. Cause there's a scene later on, we're about to see that they have the buckets on the roof, and he talks about how it hasn't rained. It's uncharacteristically, it hasn't rained since this whole thing happened. And they're not able to get water. 500
buckets on that ceiling on that roof.
Well, I have a note about that in a second here too. So
anyways.
So yeah, they eventually make it to his parents' house, and Danny Boyle talked about making the parents' house very warm and inviting on purpose. When they first arrived there, it's a lot of yellow lighting that the inside's lit with, and They just wanted to make it like a very cozy and welcoming looking home that he grew up in, you know, just to make it even sadder that it's gone now.
Yeah.
But the dead parents, this surprised me. Their dead bodies in the beds are both full prosthetic fake bodies laying there.
Really?
Yeah, and they look so real.
Dude, like really good. Wow.
So it was really good job on
they
that.
look really good. And they killed themselves off. They took the pills.
Yeah, they did. They committed the old suicide. They left a note for Jim though, and this was added in later. This was not in the original shoot schedule or script. Just this little note, and they added in later to show a little more emotion from him and a little more, I don't know, just a little more sob there. And it is sort of, you know, it's this note that, hey, we left you sleeping. Now we're going to sleep to join you. Please don't wake up. And of course, he's like one of the only ones that woke up. Yeah. So yeah.
That's when Mark gets infected. They get break and he gets
that whole thing's happened. They get attacked by the neighbors who are now infected. They did say the stuntman, upon jumping through the window the first time, just totally tripped and ate shit. So that was
fuck.
To redo that.
Oh.
Yeah, but
dude, that scene surprised me. Like he gets infected, and then like no questions asked, Selena just fucking chops him with a machete. I'm like, whoa, shit, man. Like
that's how we know how serious it is.
That'd be so hard for me if like my wife got infected and I had to kill her like right there. You know,
it just happened so fast, and obviously they were more just acquaintances, so she probably
She's like, I'm just gonna chop your arm off, your head off.
So
sorry.
Yeah.
Sure. So we lose Mark, but then they see the lit up balcony. They head to the tower. They get past the stacked up shopping carts, and then we meet Brendan Gleeson, basically, who's covered in body armor and holding a riot shield. You know,
that was so badass.
Yeah, and Brendan Gleeson actually said he really wanted the first scene you see him in. He wanted his character to be completely ruthless and cold, and he really is. Because I mean, what else can he be when you have all that body armor on and you're beating back the infected? And then there's that famous trailer scene where he knocks him over the banister and the body just goes flailing down the freaking stairs.
Dude, I love that. Such a good scene.
And he wanted it to contrast his normal character. So basically, as you know from the film, he does that. He yells at them to go into the apartment, and then he comes in and takes the mask off, and he's just the jolliest, happiest person at that time.
Can I get you a creme de menthe? And they go get the creme de menthe, and he brings out like, you drink creme de menthe straight? Like, I guess you can.
That should have been the clue that he was sinister.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The other most expensive part of the film was that in that scene, Frosty the Snowman is playing in the background, and they had to pay a fortune to use that song.
What?
Was it that important?
You're kidding me.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Just cut it out of the scene.
I got the feeling that it was playing, and it was sort of a retro, like they didn't mean to, and they had to pay for it. You know what I mean?
And like the scene was shot. You're like, well, we're not going to go reshoot that. Like, let's just
we've all been there.
Yep.
So then again, we talked about the buckets being on the roof to catch water, but it hasn't rained. Uncharacteristically of London, has not rained since this whole thing happened. And Danny Boyle got there that day to film and was like, they had maybe something about 100 buckets on the roof, and he said, and on that big of a roof, he said, this looks like 3 on this big of a roof. Like he said, by this afternoon, I need 1,000 buckets up here. And so he said they got it done, but that's also the reason they stretched it a little. That's also the reason you see like a laundry basket that's not going to hold water there.
Yeah.
A couple things there.
Right?
I think if I had to find 1,000 buckets and you gave me like 3 hours, I don't know what I would do.
I mean, nowadays you just head to Home Depot because they're like a couple dollars, right? But still, that's $2,000 worth of buckets.
Yeah. And like, are they going to have that many buckets in stock at Home Depot? Like, am I going to hit like 3 of them?
And also, if it's
they'd all say Home Depot on like the side, you probably would want that.
And they'd all be the same. There's no way that he would have all the same buckets.
That's why it looked okay, because they're all different. You know, he went through every apartment in that building and he took whatever it was out in it and put it on top of the roof.
Got all the buckets. they're there for a while. They finally decide, look, we're hearing this broadcast. We have to. They say they have a cure. We have to go see if it's true. So they decide to leave. They take the car. He's a cab driver, I think, or they take a cab. So
he's a cab driver. Yeah.
Yeah. So
he
they
makes that line.
I don't take checks or I only take cash.
Yeah, that's right. I don't take checks or credit or whatever. Yeah. So funny.
So then they go. There's this big tunnel scene. They have to go under the river, and this tunnel does indeed go under the river in London, but it was out of use at the time, and so they got the permission to use it. And we're in there for 2 days shooting the sequence. They talked about how the fumes were pretty bad from the cars that they kept running in there. And the art department had a huge task of piling up all these wrecked cars inside. And that, yes, it's not very believable that they would just be driving over all these cars.
Dude, that little taxi cab would not make it nearly over all those cars, driving over all the cars. So, oh my God, man.
Yeah. But it was a cool little shot. And, you know,
yeah, it was nice. It was cool.
They called it a cliche. Of course, the tire pops. Of course, they got to change it real quick while there's infected running at them. But it worked.
All those mice coming underneath. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, they talked about the wide shots of the rats coming in are digital rats, which I wouldn't have guessed.
Yeah.
They
look good.
Funny enough, they got complaints after the movie released from a magazine called Rodent and Marsupial Quarterly. And the complaint was they're just yet another film portraying, you know, these awesome, amazing creatures that are rats in such a negative manner.
Yeah. It's like, what the hell? They're just running on the street. What do you mean?
Oh my God. Please go on. I'll be right back. Excuse me.
Yeah, rats are creepy. Come on, man. No worries.
So yeah, it was crazy. So then they leave the tunnel. They move on to the shopping scene. So they Budgeons, which must be a popular store in London or in Europe because they got to use one. It was
like untouched. The aisles were perfectly like food stocked and everything.
They didn't use any lighting inside of Budgeons because it had perfect neon, not neon, but what do you call it? Fluorescent lighting.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to see it in the upward shots or in any of the shots. So there are a couple times when you're looking at the ceiling past their shoulders, and there's no lights on the ceiling. Because they digitally removed the lights on the ceiling as well. They took them out in post.
I wonder why would they? I don't know why
he just didn't want these blaring fluorescent lights in the picture, but it is what they use for the lighting. So
okay, well, shit.
I thought it was a little strange myself.
Yeah.
But the manager of this particular Budgeons was a huge film fan and was so excited they were there to film and let them film the sequence. They did it in one night, overnight, and they signed some posters for him and stuff.
Nice.
But this is actually one of 2 or 3 nods that Alex Garland and Danny Boyle did to Romero. So this shopping scene in Budgeons is a nod and an homage to Dawn of the Dead.
Is it? Okay, Romero. Nice.
Yeah. Just because they have run of the store, when they're and everything's so pristine and untouched.
Yeah. I just love the part where Cillian Murphy grabs the bottle and Brendan Gleeson, no, put that back. You want this? It's a rare single malt.
Schooled them on the scotch, right? Which one he needs?
12-year or whatever, to 12-year single malt.
Yeah.
And then he grabs like 6 boxes of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, good man.
Drops the plastic on the way out too.
Yeah.
The credit card. So
hell yeah.
So then they have to gas up and they stop for gas. And there's the age-old gross scene of having to siphon gas and spit it out your mouth.
Oh God. Dude. Oh.
But they have this sequence now where, of course, Jim has to kill a boy infected with the bat, and they were worried that was taking it too far, but we're glad they ultimately left it in, and you don't really see it happen.
Yeah, you see him put his foot on the neck, and then you hear the hit, whatever.
But you may recall in that scene that as he's about to hit the kid, you hear basically the kid, I mean, almost in what a kid's voice would be, say, "I hate you."
Oh, I didn't hear that.
But it's not him because the infected don't talk. And what Danny Boyle said is that actually throughout the film, during loud, jumbled, infected moments, there are almost discernible to the ear, there are obscenities and things yelled out in normal voices like it would be them talking, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And he included that in sort of the jumble, but you can't really tell. But he said this was the only spot where it really came out more than they wanted it to. And it almost seems like a mistake.
Well, I didn't really even notice it.
Yeah.
So, well.
So it's crazy. Then once again, they're driving down an empty road. Apparently that highway they're on, and this is the wide shot when you see them in 3 lanes, and then it eventually tilts up and you see the burning city on fire in front of them, Manchester
burning. Yeah.
Just before that, when they're alone on the highway, they could only have so much time to block that off, and they did what was called a rolling block, where they have cops like, you know, a mile behind them and a mile in front, also driving and keeping this rolling open space where they're filming. So,
wow, that's really cool. That's cool. That was a great
cameras.
shot.
Yeah, multiple cameras, and they had to get what they had to get, you know, right away. So
yeah, oh for sure.
Yeah.
Man, that was a cool shot. And then it peers up, and you finally see the city. Like, oh shit.
Yeah, and they wanted to make sure that looked not too cheesy, and so I think it came out pretty good. The burning city. Then they arrive at this roadblock, right? And this was on a closed test track where they would, like, I don't know, car brands rented out to test their vehicles and crashed cars and stuff like that. So that's what this roadblock was filmed on. And it was also meant to be clear of bodies, just to have, again, that lonely, desolate feeling to it.
Like, where the hell's the military at? Where are these guys that were supposed to be here?
And why are there not really dead bodies around here? And it made to look abandoned. Alex Garland was quoted saying, you know, hell is when you're truly alone. Not hell isn't like surrounded by these dead bodies and all this blah blah and people that are infected, but it's when there's truly nothing and you're just by yourself.
Yeah.
So,
you have no one to call to, no one to comfort you, no one to keep you company.
Yeah.
Ooh. What I don't get, like, they call out, they get there, no one's there, the military's not there. The soldiers must have came like a little bit later, because why didn't they pop out right away?
It is a bit of that anger you feel like at the end of The Mist too, right? When Thomas Jane has no patience and kills his whole family, and then immediately the soldiers walk around.
Yeah, like right then, like, what the fuck? Yeah.
And so
this is what happened here. And then
same in this one, he's like, they didn't find him. He's complaining. He's complaining so much that he kicks things and he gets infected, and then they pop out of nowhere. And you're like, if he had just waited 2 more minutes.
I know. Right? My God. And they shoot him. Yeah.
Yeah. This might be a good spot to. So they had a storyboarded different movie from here on out than we see on film.
Yeah. And I heard about this alternate film. Yeah.
So maybe this is a good place, because this is where it would have taken a turn, right?
This is the desanguination storyline, right? Where
what does that mean?
So my understanding from here is that Frank gets infected.
Yeah.
They endeavor to try to cure him. And
so exactly. So what happens, and it was cool on the featurettes I watched, they had a narrated storyboard where Danny Boyle and Alex Garland actually did like the lines as you saw the storyboards in front of you.
Cool.
And so, the film that could have been was here. He gets the drop in his eye. There's no military. He gets the drop in his eye. They, instead of killing him, Jim decides to sort of like subdue him, and then they wrap him with wire and stuff in a bag, like a baggie around his head, like a trash bag, and they tie him up, and they take him with them into whatever's behind this blockade. And of course, Selena is not happy about it at all, but Hannah is very grateful. And and instead of a old house, they find a hospital, somewhat of this old hospital that was behind this blockade. They get there, and it's abandoned as well. No one's there, except there is a safe room there, and there is someone inside the safe room, and he has some food in there, and he's locked himself in. And they try to, they talk to him. He says, "I'm not coming out. You're not coming in." The soldiers tried the same thing. They're all dead now. You'll be dead within 2 days. Like, just leave me alone. You know.
Yep.
It finally, there's a lot of sequences, some scenes like of some relationship building between the man behind the door, Cillian Murphy, or Jim, because it never happened. Would have been some scenes where he's leaning against the door and refusing to keep talking, or the guy was refusing to communicate. So Jim just sits there and tells him his like whole life story. It was going to be this whole sequence where, you know, it kept cutting and he would be talking about some other personal thing, and it kept cutting.
Kept trying to get in. Yeah.
Until finally this guy started communicating, and they admitted that they had an infected tied up. And this guy inside said the only way to cure him is to completely do a complete blood transfusion, because the disease lives in the blood. And that's the catch, is someone has to give all their blood, you know?
Yeah.
They open the door. It's found out that Jim has the same blood type. He ultimately, you know, there's a couple of things. Oh, there's an attack from the dead to keep things moving along. And then, of course, he decides he wants to do it. Then, of course, the dead or the infected are attacking again while they're doing this blood transfusion. And it's like very chaotic. And it ends with Jim becoming infected while tied up still after the transfusion, and Hannah, Selena, and Frank walking out.
Really?
But then they scrapped the whole thing because really,
wow.
Yeah, they scrapped the whole thing because really, if he got completely infected by one drop going into his eye, like there's no way a blood transfusion. What, you're gonna scrape every last vein for capillary of blood? You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. That would be impossible to do.
Yeah.
So it was too far fetched. They thought.
Yeah, it wasn't going to work out. So they didn't go that direction.
That was the original.
That could have been. I don't know if it was original or not, but it was definitely something else they had storyboard.
Okay, well,
that they could have done.
Oh, crazy!
Yeah.
I like the way it ended instead.
Yeah,
I'm sad that Frank died. But.
We're actually going to talk. I'll wait till we get to the ending, but there is an alternate ending as well besides this. So this was like an alternate whole last half.
It's like a different movie.
Yeah,
yeah, it's like the whole third act is different.
Yeah. So, all right. Let me see. So Frank. Yeah, this is where the army comes into play, and we meet the military. So there's a little bit of a flub when they're going up to the military base, and they open the gates for them, the barbed wire gates. The guy Mailer, who is infected, is actually one of the guys that opens the gates.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Then you're introduced to him as an infected
with the chain on his neck.
Yeah. So
no, I didn't even notice it, but shit.
Yeah, and I didn't either. They pointed it out, saying that by the time they filmed him as infected, he had got promoted to the infected, and they needed him for that. And so
they didn't realize
it's sort of
whatever.
Funny.
Yeah, I didn't notice. So no worries about that.
They talked a lot about how Danny Boyle did. Well, so did Alex Garland. This is probably Carmelo as a writer, director, probably can relate to this story-wise more, but I didn't see it a lot. They talked about how Cillian Murphy's character, Jim, had this need for a father figure throughout the film, and then by the end took matters into his own hands. And that was the theme they were going with. So, like, his father died in the beginning, so he didn't have one anymore. Right. Then Brendan Gleeson becomes this father figure. He even wakes up in that nightmare and says, "Thanks, Dad." Remember when
he said, "Thanks, Dad." I'm like, huh?
And then they get to this encampment, and the general Eccleston plays sort of now becomes a bit of a father figure to him. You know?
Oh yeah.
He even has him on the ground and is like, "I'm giving you a choice to be with us." And and so they were they brought that up a lot. And then, of course, now at the end, he doesn't need the father figure anymore. Right. He takes matters into his own hands. So
like, screw this. I'm dropping this father thing. Damn it.
Yeah.
So it's like a principle of screenwriting that, it's part of the hero's journey too, that there's something psychological about, overcoming your parents, right? There's something existential about it, because it's like the one thing in your life you can't control is who your parents were.
Yeah.
And besides that, more or less, things are generally, you can choose your destiny, but you can't choose where you came from. So that's kind of part of the hero's journey, is kicking the father figure to come into your own. And the other side of it is often there's often a mentor, and then like a dark mentor. And that's always meant to represent, the two paths that a character can take. So this is where you end up with like, Obi-Wan Kenobi is the classic, like old man, character father figure. And then you have Darth Vader, who which I think this is like why Darth Vader ended up being Luke's father, because it created that parody. And so you have that here, because you have his parents are gone. Frank is sort of beloved, at least. But then the general is like this evil piece of shit, right? So
yeah.
Kind of like
later. Yeah.
Right. So like overcoming that and overcoming the need for the father figure, that is a recurring theme in a lot of movies.
That's true. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, for sure.
Well, so so Eccleston
lets go and just takes Madison.
Eccleston's a great actor too.
Yeah, he is.
He's really good.
Really good. So he's that in this final act of the film. Last half of the film. So yeah, they're there now in this house that was an actual house built for a lord back in the day, that the guy actually never really moved into because he died, and then it was taken over by his brother, and it was a boring story, but
nice palace.
Yeah.
You feel like they're safe. They finally made it. They're safe. Yeah. They're gonna make it. Everything's gonna be good.
Yeah. So then I already mentioned that there's a couple nods to Romero in here. Next one is Mailer. Mailer is sort of a nod to Bubba from Day of the Dead, as sort of the pet zombie that's in Day of the Dead that they have on a chain there. Everything. So that's Bubba. A little homage.
With the headphones on.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's not a whole lot going on here. They did say that the whole idea that maybe they're being quarantined and this isn't happening all around the world was not originally in the script. It was not anything that they had in their minds as they started filming this movie. And in fact, when they got to this point in the film, they were like, they added it. They added in the speech from the other prisoner, the guy who sort of tried to save the girls, right?
Yeah, and cup to the raider, the other soldier that tried to, So they added that in, and of course at that point it's like, is this guy's just sort of crazy and raving on like that? That might not be true. Of course, then they take him out to execute him, and he gets away, jumps the wall, and he sees the plane in the air, and that's sort of is proving to him like, I think we are just being quarantined. Jim sees the airplane going. That's right. Yeah, that's the tall tale sign right there.
And funny enough, side note, that shot was just Danny Boyle with a camera in his backyard had been shooting planes whenever they flew by for a couple days, and they just used one of those shots.
Really? So, nice. Yeah. I got the POV of Jim looking up at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that worked. But yeah, they another idea that they had for the infected at one point was that instead of just rage, they were also these like rageful sex machines. They'd run around naked, and this was in one of the deaths slightly. There's a different cut of one of the soldiers dies in there's like a basement kitchen looking storage area, and that's where one of the guys Jones hides in the cupboards.
Yep.
And then they come in, and one guy dies on the table there, and it's a very quick death. There was another shot of it where it basically looks like he's getting sodomized by the infected. And he said they had almost thought of him as that way. Like they will sodomize and sexually abuse their victims as they are killing them.
Oh, geez.
That's probably a good thing they dropped that. I mean, it's fucked up and it's like creepy and scary, but it's almost like too limiting to the audience. I mean, when you have that much rape in a movie, that's really...
Well, they even talked about...
You already had enough as it is.
They talked about taking it as far as them running around naked with like erections the whole time.
Jesus. Yeah, I think we got
erections.
The infected, like in a sex rage with erections, like running around sodomizing people and stuff.
Oh my god, there was a few infected naked people running around too, but that would have been a lot. Oh my god.
And there was some cool. This is where most of the deleted scenes lie, and there were some cool ones. They had to cut a lot of this for compression's sake, and one of the things they changed was the way that Jones dies in the film is that he goes to run in the house or runs out of the house, and Cillian Murphy's right there with that bayonet and stabs him. He runs right into it. He was also, the other thing that they shot was a bunch of the dead, him running toward the door and then it blasting open with a bunch of the infected coming in. Like now this whole place is being overtaken, and him dying that way, and then Cillian Murphy sort of coming in behind them but sneaking around the corner like unseen, you know.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and then they did have some deleted scenes of once the guy with like the earmuff hat was infected, and also Mailer running around. I believe they had a sequence where they were chasing Jim for a while, and he hid under the floorboards and then crawled out from under the floorboards, and that looked pretty cool too.
Nice.
Yeah, and then also a sequence where the girls were running and opened the door, and there was like just an army of them like down below, and started climbing up. And so couple sequences in this end where they deleted them.
They only kept like the soldiers as the infected ones, not being
not having a lot more people and all that. They were supposed to. Lalonde was supposed to get rushed by more of them, and they were all inside the house. And
well, it's interesting that they do end up doing a lot of that stuff in 28 Weeks Later. Like that.
I need to watch it. I'm gonna watch it.
I need to watch that too. It's been a while.
To be clear, I have seen it, but I have such the worst memory, and it was probably like right when it came out that I saw it.
I think I've seen it. I can't remember if I have.
But yeah, so this was where I'll talk about the endings. First of all, when they shot this film, it actually ended right before they did the whole car crashing through the gates. It ended when they all hopped into the car and just took off.
That was done. Credit.
And that's what they filmed, because that's all the budget they had. They ran out of money. Then they sold it to Fox, or Fox agreed to release it, and Fox gave them more money to then film the ending that you see now. So film them driving up to the gate, and of course you don't really see them break through it. It like sort of cuts right there.
Cuts. There's like a little like pause. Yeah.
And then paid for them to do the whole ending where the plane flies over, and they have these unfathomable amount of sheets they've sewn together. They admitted that like that's the equivalent of like 4,000 parachutes.
They must have gone from house to house collecting sheets for sure.
They got them at the sheet store that's next door to the bucket store.
Yeah.
Yes, the bucket store. Yep, the sheet store and the bucket store.
Because that did cost money. They said that plane, to have it fly over. So it came from an airport in a certain part of the country that they said when they drove from that part, it took them about 4 hours, but it took that plane about 5 minutes.
Oh, jeez.
And every time it had to leave the airport to fly over, it cost £5,000 for the fuel.
Jeez.
So, wow. Yeah.
I wonder if like Fox just didn't like the ending the way it was, and obviously they wanted more.
I think it was a little bit somber, and they wanted some hope, like Carmelo said at the end.
Yeah,
some hope.
Was that Alex Garland that finished writing it? Then
it must have been. They must have agreed on that. But there was a completely alternate ending that they did shoot, and I saw it. Basically, Jim gets shot. They get him in the car. All that happens. They break out, but they take him right to an abandoned hospital. And it is daytime, though, by that. So they must have driven during the night and arrived at this abandoned hospital. They put him on a table and they start working on him. Selena is trying to, Hannah's working the bag, trying to get him to breathe. Selena is trying to give him a shot. And ultimately, he dies. They lose him.
What?
Yeah. And him dying, you sort of see this change in Hannah where she's just not fucking around anymore. She like picks up a nearby gun, like checks that it's loaded. Selena like somberly picks up this automatic rifle, and they walk together. Like they sort of like non-verbally say their goodbyes. They walk together out the door, and the final shot is sort of the silhouettes of them walking down the hallway with the guns, take on the world, you know, and then it would end there. And
Really?
yeah, and it was cool, and that was Alex Garland's favorite shot of the whole film that they had at the time. And but they just said it was to the Fox and test audiences. They wanted something happier. They wanted more hope than that.
Yeah.
So they ultimately changed it. Yeah. But
I like the ending the way it is. I mean, it's kind of it opens it up for another one. And
his hair did grow a lot in 28 days, though. I will say. 28 days later.
Yeah, it did grow a lot. Yeah, because he had it like shaved almost. Yeah.
But anyways, that's and they did have a slightly different version. So I shouldn't say that was the very end. They walk down the hall. You see the silhouettes. Then I don't know that if it was meant to be tacked on or not, but they did shoot a version of the ending we see now, but without Jim. I think in case they use that Jim, the ending where he dies. Oh, okay. So they have a quick ending where she's at the sewing machine still.
It's just the girl.
But she actually talks to a chicken that's on the table, and then Hannah runs in, and just the two girls pull the sheets out, and it's just the two girls.
I see.
Yeah, but
I'm glad Jim made it. And they did that little flash. They do that little like fast scene where they're going in the hospital. She gives a shot and whatever, and then Jim's saved. You know.
So they did keep some of that's from what they shot, like just that quick thing how he's saved, and
he's like, "How do you get saved?" But then he wakes in the bed. Yeah.
Then they wake up in the bed, and it's yet again 28 days later.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Well, that's all I got.
That was great, man. Great movie. I love this movie. Yeah. It is very good. Now that we just talked through it, I like it even more again. And it's definitely a very well done movie and holds up for sure.
What sucks is they had a featurette titled like The Making of 28 Days Later, and I went to watch it, and it's I've seen this before done with films where they are cheap and it was all about the possibility and almost like propaganda of how we actually could be overtaken by a virus, and it's so real, you know.
What?
I was like, that's cool and all, but I just want to know about how they made this movie, not about how the premise of it could actually happen.
yeah, for sure.
So
for sure. You gotta put that little like caution in there, a little little warning for you.
But to wrap things up, we have some announcements to make for sure. We will be doing a live commentary next week for Name the Demon, our new film that came out. You guys should, if you haven't already, we'd really, really appreciate it if you would go to Amazon and stream the movie. It's for rent right now. We understand. I know it's like $4, but if you would do that for us, we would just be forever grateful. It's going to help so much in we were basically told that if we got a certain amount of reviews, so it's important to rent it and watch it and then go on and review it. And you have to do that from Amazon website or the Amazon shopping app, not the Prime Video app. You have to go as if it's a product.
Yeah.
And you leave
a product. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you leave a review there and we get enough of those, it'll actually shift to free on Prime, and then it will be featured more in their recommendations. And so that would help us immensely. But anyways, so we next week or on Wednesday, the 28th, are going to do a live commentary. So we will post the link. You guys will be able to join us. It will be at 9 p.m. Eastern next Wednesday, the 28th. You can join us and you can comment. We'll field your comments. You can join via YouTube or Facebook. We'll be streaming on both. And we're just going to, we'll do the whole thing where, hey, we're hitting play in 3, 2, 1. And you can watch it along with us as we talk about how we filmed it and what happened here and there. And you can be asking questions, and it should be a good time. So we're doing that to help promote the film. But also we're going to be launching the Kickstarter along with that as well. And the reason we're having a Kickstarter is to produce and then promote the Blu-ray release. We're going to have some cool Blu-rays made, some awesome alternative artwork hand-drawn that will be featured on these magnetic boxes that will come with these special edition Blu-rays only for the backers. And there'll be lots of other cool prizes too for pledging. And up to and including involvement in a next film that we're potentially shooting this next summer. So you guys have to check that out. But,
yeah. And you said we're going to be doing a live commentary on the 28th, you said?
Yeah, 28th
of October.
Yeah. Did I
Yeah.
get the date right? It's next Wednesday.
That'd be Monday. That's Monday.
Oh, is it
Wednesday.
Monday? Oh, you're right. I got it wrong. It's the 30th. We're doing it on the 30th.
So that's
Wednesday
before Halloween. Yes.
the day before Halloween. Wednesday the 30th, 9 p.m. Eastern. Join us for the commentary.
Got
Forget I said the 28th. Wednesday is correct. It is the 30th though.
Yeah. And I was just looking. We have like 40 reviews on Amazon, and we're trying to get to 50 to 100. So we're almost there, guys. Help us get there.
So.
And IMDb is great too. IMDb, even just a rating on there would help. So
yeah, we appreciate it. So
yeah, love you guys so much.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us for this one, and we'll be back for the live commentary, and then back to regular scheduled programming after that. So
yeah,
we'll catch you guys next week.
Talk to you guys soon.
Woohoo.
Later.
Don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
Oh, yes. There will be blood.